So in the last week or so, we've gotten so much news about Crisis on Infinite Earths, it is insane. Obviously, it was announced like a week ago or something that Tom Welling will be reprising his role as Clark Kent in the upcoming crossover, meaning Smallville is going to be a part of the Arrowverse's multiverse as of the crossover. But then there was like 5 other pieces of news that came after that, some having to do with Smallville, some not having to do with Smallville, that I couldn't really make a separate video about each one of them. So in this video, I will be going over each one of these pieces of news. There are 5 of them that I will go over in this video. I'll talk about what they mean for the crossover and what I think about them. So with that in mind, let's just start the video. So let's start with the pieces of news having to do with Smallville. There are 2 of them, one of them confirming that a character or actress actually is returning, and another one confirming that an actor isn't returning. First of all, the character that is returning is Lois Lane, played by Erica Durance, joining Tom Welling in their reprisal of the roles in the upcoming crossover. Now, I'm not exactly a huge fan of Smallville, and I'm not exactly like that excited to see Tom Welling return as Superman, because not only am I, like I said, not a huge fan of Smallville, but we already have other Supermen, but I'm actually a little bit more excited to see Lois Lane return because while, again, I'm not a huge fan of Smallville, I do think that they really nailed the character of Lois Lane, probably better than any live-action portrayal ever, so Lois Lane returning is interesting, not to mention that similarly to Brandon Routh playing Superman in the upcoming crossover as well, it kind of brings up complications with the multiverse because there's no way in hell that Ray Palmer in another universe would be Superman or be a Kryptonian at all. It just makes no sense. But the same thing happens with Lois Lane, as Erica Durance, the actress who plays her, plays Kara's mother on Supergirl, at least from like season 3 onwards. They kind of recast the role, but it makes no sense for Kara's mother to look exactly the same as Lois Lane in another universe. So I am actually interested to see how they explain this. Maybe like there's more than a multiverse, like an omniverse or something, where in those universes people look different, because why did these characters look different while in every other universe the characters, their counterparts or their doppelgangers, all look exactly the same? But that brings us to the other piece of news having to do with Smallville, and while Superman or Clark Kent and Lois Lane are returning, the third main character of Smallville, Lex Luthor, is not. Michael Rosenbaum, the actor who played Lex Luthor in Smallville, also he plays Wally West, aka The Flash, on Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and also Wally West, aka Kid Flash, in Teen Titans, so that's interesting. But the actor who played Lex Luthor in Smallville said that he is not returning in spite of the fact that he was asked to return. He tweeted on Twitter a picture of a whole thing explaining why he isn't returning in spite of the fact that he did want to, because it seems like they really aren't treating the actors well, or they just aren't compensating them, or something like that. So he's not returning, which I gotta say, again, not a huge fan of Smallville. While I do like Michael Rosenbaum's portrayal of Lex Luthor in the show, I'm not disappointed that he's not returning. I think that with all these characters, it's maybe a little bit bloated enough, so I don't really mind the fact that he's not returning. Not to mention that we already have John Cryer as Lex Luthor, and even though he's not really appeared that much, I do think John Cryer was just a little bit better than Michael Rosenbaum, so while I think it would have been cool to maybe see his Lex Luthor return, I'm not exactly disappointed that he isn't. But speaking of Kid Flash, like I said, Michael Rosenbaum did play him, and also speaking of characters that are not returning, Wally West, aka Kid Flash, is not going to be appearing in the crossover, as stated by Kenan Lonsdale, the actor who plays him. He is returning in The Flash Season 6, whether that's before the crossover or after, that has not been confirmed, but he is returning and he will have a storyline for a couple episodes. He's going to be a recurring character in this season. I mean, he was supposed to be in Season 5, but he only really appeared in one episode, and that was the first episode of the season. But all things aside, I am a little disappointed in the fact that Kid Flash is not appearing in the crossover, because I mean, why wouldn't he? He's a superhero, he's a speedster, so like if he's far away, it would be easy for him to come around. So either he's dead, either he doesn't have his powers anymore, or he should appear. So that's definitely disappointing. Not to mention that Kid Flash did have a fairly sizable role in the original crossover, as that was the original comic, as that was the comic book that he became the Flash, as Barry Allen died or was seemingly killed by him running around the machine that was going to destroy the multiverse. Kid Flash then took over the role of the Flash and then was the Flash for like 20 years until Barry returned, and then they actually were both the Flash. But yeah, Kid Flash had a pretty sizable role in the crossover, so that and the fact that it would have been cool to see more of the character, especially in a crossover, as the only time he's ever appeared in a crossover was in Invasion, where he really didn't have much of a role, and then in Crisis on Earth X, where he had even smaller of a role. So this would have been cool, and this is definitely very disappointing that he is not returning, especially if Arsenal is returning, because I've always wanted to see those two characters team up, and it's crazy that they still haven't. But yeah, this is definitely very disappointing. So the Crisis is actually introducing us to a new superhero, or at least it seems like it is, and maybe the replacement to Ray Palmer, aka the Atom, in Legends of Tomorrow, as Ryan Choi, who is the Atom in the comics, and an assistant to Ray Palmer, who again becomes the Atom, is going to be appearing played by Osric Chow, who is an actor who apparently appeared in Supernatural. I don't know, I haven't seen it, but he is going to be playing Ryan Choi in the upcoming crossover. His role, the amount of episodes he appears in, and whether or not he will become the Atom in the crossover, none of that has been confirmed as of yet, but this is kind of interesting, as like I said, the Atom, or Ray Palmer, is actually leaving Legends of Tomorrow in the upcoming season, and the fact that he's leaving while a new Atom, or at least Ryan Choi, is debuting, I don't think it is coincidental. It's very likely that he will be replacing Ray Palmer as the Atom on Legends of Tomorrow, but it's also interesting because Ryan Choi has already been mentioned on The Flash, as Nora West Allen mentioned him in the first episode of The Flash Season 5, mentioning that he created the new suit that Nora just gave to Barry from the future, which means that, yeah, Ryan Choi did not exactly have a good start for the Arrowverse in terms of his contributions, at least in terms of what we're seeing, not maybe chronologically, but in terms of what we've been shown. The fact that he created the Flash's first suit in The Flash Season 5 is not a very good thing. He's not a very good costume designer. I mean, he could be a good hero, a good character overall, but one thing that we know about him for sure is that he does not know how to make costumes, as the first costume in The Flash Season 5 was not only the worst costume that The Flash ever wore, but it's quite possibly the worst costume that we've ever seen on The Flash, and that counts that first prototype suit that The Flash wore in the first episode of the show, maybe, possibly, but yeah, Ryan Choi, not exactly a very good costume designer, but again, he could be a very good character, he could be a very good hero, as he will almost definitely either become the Atom in the crossover, or become the Atom in the future on The Flash, maybe, as it does seem that he does have a role on Team Flash, as he did create the costume in the future, probably not very long in the future, but who knows, he could also be joining Legends of Tomorrow and replacing Ray Palmer as the new Atom, as, you know, they wouldn't really introduce Ryan Choi without having him become the Atom, so that's actually something that I am very interested in, because while the Atom is leaving, I'm glad that they at least have a replacement for him, and Ryan Choi could definitely, I think, maybe be a good replacement in Legends of Tomorrow, or at least, you know, in the Arrowverse. And the final bit of news has to do with yet another TV show being added to the Arrowverse's multiverse and having a role in the crossover, or at least one of the characters will have a role in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Ashley Scott, the actress who played Helena Kyle, aka Huntress, the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, in the early 2000s Birds of Prey TV show that only lasted one season, is reprising her role for the upcoming crossover in what is, I think, the strangest casting for this crossover so far, as it is now the third TV show to be added to the Arrowverse through this crossover after Black Lightning, Smallville, now Birds of Prey. If you count The Flash from the early 90s from Elseworlds, that's 4 TV shows that were added in the last 2 crossovers. That is insane, but I think this is the weirdest addition, as the early Flash TV show, you know, has connections to the current one, as John Wesley Shipp specifically has a huge connection to The Flash, playing Jay Garrick and Henry Allen. So that made perfect sense. Smallville is on the CW, it had a huge following, so obviously a lot of people will want to see that. Black Lightning was also on the CW, and literally everybody thought when it was coming out that it was going to be a part of the Arrowverse, so all of those make sense. But Birds of Prey, not only I don't think was on the CW, it also has no connection to the Arrowverse at all. It doesn't really have much of a following, and the character they're using, the Huntress, they already have that character in the Arrowverse, and I feel like the Arrowverse's version of the Huntress is probably going to be better, or probably was better than this one. I wouldn't know, I haven't seen Birds of Prey, but I'm guessing that is probably the case. So out of all the castings for this crossover, this is the strangest one to me. It's not one that I'm excited for, as like I said, haven't seen Birds of Prey, have no intention to see Birds of Prey unless I have to because it's in the Arrowverse, but I don't think this is something that I'm excited for, except for the possibility of maybe Batgirl from Birds of Prey appearing, as again, I haven't seen it, but her costume looks really cool. And also Batgirl, as well as Barbara Gordon, has never appeared or even been mentioned in the Arrowverse, so the Oracle has. That was a reference that they really never explained. It didn't really make very much sense, but you know, so that means that Batgirl existing in the Arrowverse's multiverse, quite possibly in the new Earth 1 or the new Earth, that would complete the Arrowverse's DC universe just a little bit, but that I don't think is enough. Birds of Prey I don't think is a TV show that was necessary for this crossover or necessary for the Arrowverse, as again has no connection to the Arrowverse, was not on the CW I don't think, and also it doesn't really have much of a following, so I don't really think there are a lot of people that are going to tune in for this crossover because of the fact that Birds of Prey will have some sort of role. And I also don't think that there are that many people who are interested or care about what happened after the first season and the only season of Birds of Prey, but for the small amount of people who do want both of those things, I guess they're going to be getting something extra in this crossover, while I maybe am not, and I definitely would have preferred the original, or not the original, actually she came second, but the Arrowverse's version of the Huntress from Arrow seasons 1 and 2 to reprise her role. I've wanted that for a while, as although she's not my favorite character at all, she is a character who has a lot of potential. For her returning as the Huntress in the comics, I think is a pretty good character, so I would have liked to see her return. If she isn't, then rather than the Birds of Prey version of Huntress, but this is what we're getting, at least from what we know right now. And what do you know it, I was just about done making this video, but they released our first look at Brandon Routh's return to the character of Clark Kent, aka Superman, in his Kingdom Come inspired outfit. This outfit, I think that it looks really good, at least for the most part. I don't love the red trunks. I've always disliked red trunks on Superman's costume. I think it looks really stupid. That is, except for one instance, that is in Brandon Routh's Superman Return suit, where it actually looks pretty cool. Here, on the other hand, they're really big, and I just think they look really weird, and I've always thought that. I think maybe if we see the entire suit all together, maybe it will look less weird, but in this suit, I think it makes it look a little bit weird, but other than that, I think the suit is really good. The logo looks amazing, the actual suit texture and the cape, it all looks really good, and I'm definitely excited to see this version of the character on screen. Also, how different it looks from Superman of Earth 38 suit. Probably it'll look different enough from Clark Kent of whatever universe Smallville is from suit, so all three characters could look very different, which is not even that wasn't even the case in the original crossover. In the original comic book 3 Superman, they all were wearing the exact same suit, so here, if they all wear very different looking suits, I think that will make them look a lot different. Also, they're played by different actors, but that's one other thing. Either way, I think this is a pretty good costume that might end up being a even better looking costume when we see it on screen for the first time. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on everything I've talked about today in this video, and if you liked this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.